Imagine a place larger than Germany, but with fewer people than San Jose, California. Sounds wild, right? Welcome to Montana, a state of jaw-dropping beauty, but shockingly empty landscapes. So, why does almost nobody live here? Is it the freezing winters, the isolation, or something deeper in its history? Could you survive in a place with more elk than neighbors and a hospital 3 hours away? Let's find out. Number 1. Brutal winters that scare people away. Montana's winters are no joke unless your idea of fun is waking up to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit with snow up to your knees and frozen eyelashes. Yep, temperatures in eastern Montana can plummet as low as minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit, especially in towns like Glasgow or Havre. And it's not a one-time freak event. It's an annual expectation. For comparison, that's colder than parts of Siberia and Antarctica during their warmer months. Snowfall. Red Lodge averages nearly 200 inches of snow per year. That's over 16 feet, basically stacking 3 NBA players on top of each other and still needing a shovel. Even major cities like Bozeman and Missoula routinely get 80 to 100 inches annually, and don't even get us started on the blizzards. Whiteouts so intense. You could lose your car in your own driveway. Now throw in the wind. Montana is home to some of the windiest spots in the U.S., with gusts hitting 70 miles per hour in places like Livingston. Imagine trying to walk your dog and getting blown into the next town over. Fun. Maybe not. All of this makes everyday life much harder. Heating bills skyrocket. Montanans pay an average of $2,500 to $3,000 each winter to keep warm. Roads become icy obstacle courses and power outages not rare. So while Montana may look like a snowy paradise in pictures, living through one of its legendary winters takes grit, snow tires, thermal underwear, and a deep appreciation for frostbite. No wonder so many folks say, beautiful place to visit, but I'm not living there. Number 2. Geographic isolation. Montana is huge. We're talking 147,000 square miles of wide open nothingness, making it the 4th largest state in the U.S. But here's the twist. Only about 1.1 million people live here. That's fewer people than you'll find in Dallas, Texas. In fact, Montana's population density is just 7.6 people per square mile. Compare that to New Jersey's 1,200 people per square mile, and you'll see why Montanans have more deer than neighbors. Now, imagine needing to drive hours just to get groceries or visit a decent hospital. Take the town of Glasgow, Montana, for example. It's so remote that National Geographic dubbed it the most isolated town in the contiguous United States, the nearest city, with a population over 75,000. A casual 4.5-hour drive away. That's like living in Los Angeles but driving to Las Vegas just to get to Costco. And don't expect fancy public transport out here. Buses, trains, and subways are a big city luxury. In Montana, your car is your lifeline. If you don't own one, you're stuck. And if it breaks down on a rural highway in winter, good luck, because help could be hours away. Cell service? Spotty at best in the mountains and valleys. Air travel doesn't make things easier. Montana has only 7 commercial airports, and only Billings and Bozeman offer regular flights with multiple connections. Even those can cost you an arm and a leg. A round-trip flight from Bozeman to New York can easily hit $600 or more. So while Montana's isolation creates serene landscapes and peaceful living, it also means sacrificing convenience, accessibility, and connectivity. For many people, that trade-off is just too much. Living here can feel like choosing to be off-grid, even if you didn't mean to be number 3. Limited economic opportunities. Montana may be rich in natural beauty, but when it comes to economic opportunities, things get a little sparse. The state's economy heavily leans on agriculture, tourism, mining, and timber industries that are solid but not exactly booming in today's high-tech job market. In fact, Montana ranks in the bottom third of U.S. states for total GDP, contributing just around $64 billion in 2023. For comparison, that's less than 1% of the national GDP and smaller than what Starbucks made globally last year. Let's talk jobs. Montana's unemployment rate floats around 3.2%, which doesn't sound terrible, but it hides a deeper issue: underemployment. Many Montanans are working part-time or seasonal gigs just to get by high-paying industries like tech, finance, and biotech. Not much happening there. Only about 3% of Montana jobs are in the information or finance sectors, compared to over 10% in states like California or New York. The average annual wage in Montana is around $54,000, well below the national average of $65,000. Even in bustling Bozeman, where the economy is considered hot, many workers struggle to find livable incomes. College grads often leave for places like Denver or Seattle, where salaries and opportunities are higher. It's part of the so-called brain drain effect, where young, educated folks hit the road for greener and better-paying pastures. And let's not forget about healthcare access. Montana has one of the lowest physician-to-population ratios in the country. About 198 doctors per 100,000 people. That means long waits, fewer specialists, and again, hours of driving just to get care. So unless you're a rancher, park ranger, or a remote worker with a stable income, making a solid living in Montana can be tough. The land might be wide open, but for many, the opportunities feel painfully limited. Number 4. High cost of living. Here's something that surprises a lot of people. Despite being known for its wide open spaces and rustic charm, living in some parts of Montana can cost you more than living in big cities. Yep, especially in popular places like Bozeman, Missoula, and Whitefish, where housing prices have absolutely skyrocketed in the past decade. Take Bozeman, for instance, a city with just over 56,000 people. But a median home price sitting around $750,000 in 2025. That's higher than Phoenix, Arizona, and creeping dangerously close to Denver prices. Why the hike? Blame it on a wave of out-of-state buyers. Ever since the pandemic normalized remote work, thousands of people from California, Washington, and Texas have flocked to Montana for its scenic lifestyle. This sudden demand overwhelmed local housing markets. And because building codes and infrastructure weren't ready for it, prices shot up fast. In Bozeman, home prices surged by over 100% between 2015 and 2025. Even rent isn't cheap. A basic one-bedroom apartment in Missoula now costs about $1,600 per month, up from $900 a decade ago. Meanwhile, the average salary in Montana is just around $54,000, meaning housing eats up a much larger slice of the paycheck here than in many other rural states. And the sticker shock doesn't stop with rent or mortgages. Grocery prices in Montana are nearly 10% above the national average, thanks to the state's geographic isolation and limited supply chains, gas, utilities, and even internet. Yup, all a bit pricier than you'd expect in a state with more cattle than people. So while Montana may seem like a low-cost rural retreat, that dream can come with a hefty price tag for locals, many of whom earn modest incomes. The rising cost of living is making it nearly impossible to stay put. Young people are leaving and not coming back. Let's talk about the Montana Exit Plan, a quiet but steady trend that's reshaping the state's future. For years, young people have been packing their bags and heading out of Montana after high school or college, and most of them aren't coming back. It's what demographers call youth outmigration. And in Montana, it's reaching a critical point, according to the Montana Department of Labor and Industry. Roughly 60% of Montana's young adults leave the state within 5 years of graduating high school. That's a big deal when you're already one of the most sparsely populated states in America. Why are they leaving? 3 big reasons: lack of job opportunities, limited entertainment and social life, and sky-high housing prices in the places they'd actually want to live. Let's face it, if you're 24, armed with a degree and dreaming of a career in tech, media, or business, the thought of staying in Havre or Miles City doesn't quite match the vibe. And even Bozeman, with all its trendy coffee shops and art scenes, is tough when rent is $1,800 for a one-bedroom apartment and the best-paying job in town is $42,000. This outflow is fueling another issue. Montana is aging fast. The median age in Montana is now 40.1 years, compared to the national median of 38.9. And in rural counties, it's even higher. Some places have median ages over 50. This creates a shortage of young workers, fewer kids in schools, and a healthcare system stretched thin by a growing senior population. So the cycle continues. Young people leave, communities shrink, and the state struggles to attract new residents. Until more career options, affordable housing, and nightlife arrive, Montana's youth will keep looking for greener and more exciting pastures elsewhere. Number 6. Rugged terrain and harsh geography. Montana is jaw-droppingly beautiful, no doubt. Rolling prairies, epic mountain ranges, and pristine alpine lakes. But that same raw, rugged beauty is also one of the reasons people don't live here. Let's be real. Not everyone wants to carve out a life in a place where grizzly bears, avalanches, and flash blizzards are part of the landscape. With over 100 named mountain ranges, including the towering Rockies and the Bear-Tooth Mountains, much of Montana is steep, rocky, and tough to develop. More than 40% of the state is public land, which is great for outdoor enthusiasts, but not for housing or big infrastructure projects. Agriculture. While it plays a huge role in Montana's economy, about $5 billion annually, a lot of the land is semi-arid and requires irrigation. Eastern Montana especially is prone to long droughts, tough soil, and winds so intense they can knock over fences. And farming here isn't just hard, it's expensive. Water rights, expensive equipment, and long distances to markets make it tough to turn a profit unless you've got major capital behind you. Transportation is another issue. Montana has more miles of rural RD per capita than any other state, about 70,000 miles total. But only one Interstate I-90 runs fully east to west. That means if you live off the main corridor, you're likely relying on unpaved roads that can become impassable during snowstorms or spring thaws. It's not uncommon for small towns to get cut off entirely during rough weather. And if you're a city person, you might miss the basics like Uber, shopping malls, or even fast food. Some towns are 80 miles from the nearest Walmart. So while nature lovers may find paradise, many others find the terrain just too wild to tame. Number 7. Sparse infrastructure and limited services. Living in Montana can feel like stepping back in time. Charming, sure, but also frustratingly disconnected. One of the biggest reasons people don't settle here. The infrastructure simply isn't built for modern, fast-paced lifestyles. With such a vast land area, over 147,000 square miles, and only 1.1 million residents spreading out, essential services like hospitals, schools, and high-speed internet gets tricky. For many Montanans, the nearest grocery store, pharmacy, or clinic could be 45 minutes to 2 hours away. And let's not even talk about finding a good latte in rural eastern Montana. Healthcare access is a major issue. Montana ranks near the bottom in doctor availability, with just 198 physicians per 100,000 people compared to a national average of about 277. That means long wait times, limited specialists, and for many rural residents, a trip to the can mean hours on the road. In emergencies, those minutes count, especially during winter, when icy roads can make travel risky or impossible. Education is another concern. While Montana is home to respected universities like the University of Montana and Montana State, many rural areas struggle to staff K-12 schools. Small towns may only have one school for all grades. And with teacher shortages hitting hard, some districts are moving to 4-day school weeks just to cope. Then there's internet access. Despite national efforts to expand broadband, nearly 25% of Montanans still lack access to high-speed internet, particularly in the mountains and plains. For remote workers, students, or anyone trying to stream Netflix, it's a deal-breaker. Even basic infrastructure like paved roads, public transportation, and water lines can be limited or outdated. So while Montana is overflowing with natural charm, the lack of modern amenities makes day-to-day living inconvenient and, for many, simply not sustainable. Number 8. Historical settlement patterns that shaped a sparse and empty state. To understand why Montana feels so empty today, you've got to rewind back to the 1800s when the state was first being settled. Unlike the tightly packed cities of the East Coast, Montana's development was shaped by wide open land grants, mining booms, and the Homestead Act of 1862, which encouraged Americans to claim vast chunks of land, up to 160 acres per family as long as they worked it. This policy scattered settlers across the state, creating isolated ranches and tiny frontier towns rather than dense urban hubs. The result? A population pattern that's still incredibly spread out more than 150 years later. Today, Montana has only one city with over 100,000 residents, Billings. Even the state capital, Helena, has just about 33,000 people. By comparison, Vermont's capital, Montpelier, is the smallest in the U.S., and Helena is only a notch above it. Towns in eastern Montana, like Jordan or Broadus, might have fewer than 500 residents. That's not a neighborhood. It's a long weekend Airbnb guest list, and many of those little towns haven't grown. They've shrunk. After the Dust Bowl, mechanization of farming, and changes in rail transport, a lot of small communities lost relevance and jobs. Between 1920 and today, dozens of once thriving towns became ghost towns, some with crumbling storefronts and population signs stuck at double digits. Railroads used to serve as lifelines, connecting mining and cattle towns to the rest of the country. But as the railroad era faded and highways bypassed many of these communities, the isolation grew. The infrastructure never really evolved, and new industries didn't flock to replace the old ones. So while other states built cities around ports, factories, or universities, Montana's history locked it into a layout of distance, silence, and space. That legacy is still visible today. Beautiful, yes, but undeniably sparse.